Ordinarily, we begin our sessions with a prayer. So if you can just stand and join me in the Our Father's prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome all of you from the public service to this hallowed chambers. You know, I'm a former civil servant myself for 21 years. I have some experience in the public service, and I became very familiar with general orders over that time. I suspect today that some of your discussions and debate will have to do with the general orders and the efficiency of the public service, and I look forward to a very informative session with you. I noted the mission statement of the public service, which is to maximize productivity in the public service by providing efficient, effective, and equitable human resource services to public officers and the community through the formulation and determination of policies. And just to give you some information on the Parliament and government, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas establishes three arms of government. The Parliament or legislative arm, which is the first branch of government, the executive, the second branch, and the judiciary, the third branch of government. The Speaker is the head of the Parliament. The Prime Minister heads the executive branch, and the Chief Justice is the head of the judiciary. The Bahamas' Parliament consists of Her Majesty, the Queen, represented by Her Excellency, the Governor General, the Senate, which is also called the Upper House of Parliament, and the House of Assembly, the Lower House. All three work together in carrying out the work of Parliament. The House of Assembly is the house in which the party with the majority or a coalition of parties and independent members form the government. Following a general election, when the results are known, Her Excellency, the Governor General, commissions the leader of the party or coalition with the majority of seats in the House of Assembly to form the government. The Speaker is the head of Parliament or the legislative branch and the presiding officer of the House of Assembly, and is elected by the members of the House of Assembly at the commencement of each new Parliament. The Speaker is usually a member of the political party in government, but is mandated to be impartial in his considerations and does not participate in the debates. But like a judge, in his capacity as a quasi-judicial officer, the Speaker can question or pose questions after a debate. And when votes are taken, if the vote is equal on the floor of Parliament, the Speaker then has a casting vote. The role of the Speaker is to enforce the rules of procedure, maintain order of the House of Assembly, put questions after the debate, and conduct divisions. And in addition, though many might be challenged by this fact, the Speaker of the House of Assembly, assisted by the President of the Senate, are jointly responsible for the administration and financial control of the Parliament, and not the executive that has become the norm in Bahamian society. The functions of the Parliament are simply, one, to provide representation for the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, to provide the members that comprise the executive. In other words, the Parliament is the first arm of government constitutionally, and out of the Parliament, the executive is either selected by the Prime Minister or appointed by the Prime Minister out of the Senate. Number three, to debate and pass, reject, or amend or repeal legislation, to approve the finance for government operation, including the public service, to examine government's administration and expenditure, to provide a check on the executive and provide a forum for the ventilation of matters of public concern, and to educate the public about aspects of the work of Parliament. And the role the Parliament plays is an important role in scrutinizing and reviewing legislation and the activities of government. Constitutionally, Parliament is vested with the powers to make new laws and or amend and review existing laws for the peace, order, and good governance of the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, to scrutinize the activities of the government and keep it to account to the people, to examine and debate proposed legislations and refer matters of concern to the standing committees that are established in this parliamentary system, to approve the finance, including the budget for the government, to advise the government on public policy, and to raise and examine issues that are of concern to the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. With respect to the upper house, the Senate, a maximum of 3 members of the Senate can be appointed to serve in the executive. Bills can be introduced in the Senate, but the Senate cannot initiate money bills or amend money bills. Now, I just want to clear up one confusion that I see we've been experiencing in the society, and that is the confusion or apparent confusion between the government and the Parliament. Occasionally, citizens confuse Parliament with government. For example, I know you all are familiar with the saying that following a general elections, I don't understand how these fellas just got elected and the government went on vacation, when in fact, the Parliament is on recess. The government is not on vacation. The Parliament is in recess. The government continues. The Parliament includes not only the government members, but also Her Majesty's official opposition, minor parties, and independents. Whereas under the Westminster system of government, only ministers form the cabinet and can be properly described as the government. Notwithstanding, it is an established practice to consider governing members of the cabinet as well as the backbenchers as a part of government. And in conclusion, I would say that constitutionally, the executive has the general control of the government and makes the important decisions. But these decisions must be approved by Parliament. The Parliament must always have the power to discuss and, in so doing, question, criticize, scrutinize, and, when necessary, condemn the government actions. In other words, the principal function of the Parliament is to hold the government accountable. And so, with that, I expect a really informative debate from you this morning. I know it's unusual for civil servants to have the opportunity to become very political. and I want you to take that with caution. Because you are being recorded. That is not a threat. because of course, you know, the speaker never threatens. The speaker is always impartial, just seeking to keep the proper decorum in this place. And so, with that, I wish you all success on this, your very first parliamentary exercise. And I look forward to future events coming from you. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, I will now accept nominations for a member to be elected Speaker.
I nominate the 2017 National Public Service Officer of the Year to be Speaker.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I second.
It has been moved and seconded that the 2017 National Public Service Officer of the Year be elected Speaker. All in favor will remain seated. All opposed will rise. The 2017 National Public Service Officer of the Year has been elected Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Life is an opportunity given to us by Almighty God, from whom all our blessings flow. This morning, you are the first to be afforded the opportunity to represent your respective ministries and departments in this honorable house. An opportunity that comes once in a lifetime. Please do not take this opportunity for granted, but to be mindful of those who you represent and your purpose of being here this morning. Throughout the deliberations this morning, I want you to ponder on the words from the Apostle Paul in the Epistle to the Galatians, chapter 6, verse 10, which says, "So then, while we have an opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who are of the household of faith." Let us pray. Father, we praise you with a new song and declare your glory and great works among your people. For everything under the sun, there is a plan and a purpose. So we pray that the plans that you have for those who you call upon will be manifested. Help us to believe in ourselves and know that whatever happens in this place is well done. We are new creatures in Christ and will move beyond past events. With you, we will walk uprightly because you direct our steps. We declare new beginnings and new opportunities as we place Jesus as the center of our lives. Let us all repeat the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Honorable members, I am not unmindful of the honor which has been conferred on me today in you electing me to this highest of offices, that of your Speaker and servant. It will be my aim and duty to uphold the principles and traditions of this House and secure for each member the right to express his or her opinions within the limits necessary to preserve the decorum of this House. I pledge to recognize the rights and privileges of the honorable members and the House itself. I will ensure that I would preside in a manner which will facilitate the transaction of debate in an orderly manner, and above all, I will seek to be fair and impartial in the decisions, the rules of this Parliament, and yourselves as entrusted to me. Thank you. I now invite honorable members to elect from amongst yourselves a member to be Deputy Speaker of this mock Parliament.
I nominate the member from the Royal Bahamas Police Force to be Deputy Speaker.
Is there a seconder?
I second.
It has been moved and seconded that the honorable member for the Royal Bahamas Police Force serve as Deputy Speaker of this mock Parliament. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The honorable member for the Royal Bahamas Police Force has been elected Deputy Speaker of this mock Parliament. Resolutions. The Chair recognizes the honorable member for the Ministry of the Public Service and National Insurance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to move the following resolution. Whereas, over the years, the highly educated, trained, and skilled persons employed in the public service of the Bahamas have proven that they possess the wherewithal to deliver efficient and effective services on behalf of the government of the Bahamas. And whereas, ensuring the government's obligations to its citizens and others are met in a timely fashion are among the duties and tasks performed and executed with high levels of professionalism by public officers. And whereas the government of the Bahamas, being fully cognizant of the need for public officers to remain responsive to the ever-present local and international demands for the timely delivery of government services, continues to implement its the schedule of targeted reforms in key areas of the public service. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the members assembled in this Parliament will debate how change in the public service can ignite change in our nation. Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of the hard-working staff of the Ministry of the Public Service and National Insurance, whom I have the honor of representing here today. Working at this ministry for the past 6.5 years has given me a unique perspective of the public service as an institution and the profound effect that we have on our society. To successfully move this motion, I want to examine the relationship between the public service and our nation and why change is necessary before we can figure out what changes need to be made. Mr. Speaker, according to UN estimates as of January 1st of this year, the total population of the Bahamas is slightly above 400,000. While this number is constantly changing, it is safe to say that there are around 40,000 persons directly engaged in some capacity by the Bahamas government. If this is the case, then the public service represents a cross-section of the nation. This is important to note because if we are the nation and we run the nation, then we have the power to change the nation. Since 1/10 of the total population makes up the public service, we can only reflect what the Bahamas truly is. With this in mind, I can wholeheartedly agree with the first stance of the resolution. The public service, just like this nation, is home to many highly educated, trained, and skilled persons. Our little country boasts some of the best persons in the world in their respective fields, and many of them choose to come home and contribute, even if it means a reduced salary. Today's public officers have been trained and certified at universities all around the globe and put that experience to use, training and building capacities in other Bahamians for future generations. In fact, many top-level public service posts now require additional certifications and international exposure to make sure that Bahamians stay globally competitive. Working at the Ministry of the Public Service, I can personally attest that persons within the public service have the wherewithal to deliver efficient and effective services within their respective ministries and departments. Every day, I see the dedication of officers at my ministry who regularly come in over an hour before their shift starts and stay well into the night to process large promotion exercises without overtime payment or even gratitude from the customers they help. Every day, I hear stories of officers with the personal pride and professionalism to dip into their own pockets to get the job done when government assistance is absent or inadequate. They go above and beyond their job descriptions and sometimes even their qualifications to perform their job with excellence. Every day, I read the files of officers who show up to work despite their personal ailments or professional gripes. Officers who continue to perform and excel in bad working conditions. Officers who go years without even taking vacation leave. This unique perspective gives me the authority to say with confidence that this government's obligations to its citizens and others are met in a timely fashion with high levels of professionalism by public officers.
The mere fact that an organization as large as the Public Service continues to function bears testament to the truth of this statement. So then, Mr. Speaker, what is the problem? If I am painting such a flowery view of the Public Service, what's the issue? The problem is not necessarily the institution itself. The Public Service is a key feature of the Westminster model of government, which is employed throughout former and current members of the British Commonwealth with great success. In fact, Singapore, a former colony, is one of the most progressive and wealthiest nations in Asia. The problem is not also necessarily the quality of persons employed by the Public Service. We have established the fact that there are countless thousands of educated and skilled persons who perform above and beyond what is asked of them. So again, what is the problem? A quote by Andy Warhol says, "Perception precedes reality." Our culture glorifies the negative and ignores the good that people do. We only pay attention to the person who takes the long lunch or the office drunk, but ignore the countless thousands of persons who give decades of quality service to their nation and their particular organization. We read the headlines and see on the news when persons are called before the court, but hear almost nothing of the hundreds of retirees every year with 20 or more years of service on the job. We hear about the low pay, the bad attitude, or the sad stories of persons legitimately wronged by the system. But do we ever acknowledge the vast amount of things that get accomplished in this country by the Public Service? Bad apples spoil the bunch, and the negative perception of the Public Service is quickly becoming a reality. In our culture, government jobs and government workers are lambasted on call-in radio and television talk shows. And most importantly, we add to the public's perception by the way we speak publicly and on social media platforms about our work-related issues. So then, Mr. Speaker, what needs to change? While I am making the case that the problem is cultural and that the negative perceptions of persons employed by the Public Service do not fairly depict the reality of the hard work and professionalism displayed every day, I still do believe that change is necessary in the Public Service. The third stanza of this resolution speaks to the responsibility of the government of the Bahamas to remain responsive and to reform. C.J. Roberts once said, "Monsters are not born, they are created." The bad apples that tarnish our reputation are not accidents. They are products of a bureaucracy and a Bahamian culture that hates change. Sir Clement Maynard coined the term "all for me, baby," which I believe adequately sums up former Public Service administrative practices and policies. Power and information were tightly controlled within the various ministries, departments, and sections. Cronyism, sexism, political affiliation, and dare I say, even sweethearting. Determines your career altitude rather than performance and skill. Young, brilliant minds were intentionally frustrated so as to remove any future threat to their leaders. While there is still evidence that these practices still exist, successive governments have been attempting to initiate the change we so desperately need within the Public Service. Here are just a few efforts being made to introduce change. The Public Service Commission, in coordination with the Ministry of the Public Service, have been recruiting persons with degrees and technical certifications to make sure that the future public service is smarter, brighter, and more efficient. There's been a rotation of senior officers within the public service to share knowledge and experience. Establishment of a policy, planning, and development unit within the Ministry of the Public Service in January of 2015 has been created to review, amend, and update policies and practices that exist in the public service. And in 2017, they produced a standardized book of human resource policy manuals to make sure that across the board, policies can be reflected. And finally, the establishment of the Public Service Modernization Unit within the Office of the Prime Minister in August of this year will ensure that in addition to policies and in addition to recruiting young minds, that the ICT upgrades throughout the public service can be made and implemented to increase the value of the service that we give to the nation. So then, Mr. Speaker, how do we ignite the change? We must change the culture by initiating a culture of change. We must have personal accountability for our actions and our performance on the job and the service that we give. And finally, we must end the blame game. Mr. Speaker, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. That's a quote by Albert Einstein. It's easy to assign blame to specific governments or specific leaders, as we have always done and love to do. It is also easy to throw borrowed money at our problems and hope that it brings a solution. But the only way, I believe, to ignite the change in our nation is to establish a culture of change, first within the public service, then in our society. With this in mind, I move this resolution. God bless. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. May I remind members of the gallery at this time that as observers of the debate, your comments and actions and applauses are not welcomed. Thank you very much. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes the honorable member from the Department of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, deep within each heart, there lies a magic spark that lights the fire of our imagination. And since the dawn of man, the strength of just I can has brought together people of all nations. These words, sung by renowned artist Celine Dion, tells the story of how just a spark can ignite a blazing fire. Like that spark, Mr. Speaker, the public service can become the epitome of the idealism, integrity, knowledge, and skills that can bring about a positive change in our nation. It is this conviction that propels me to rise to second the proposed resolution. The preamble of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas recognizes that the preservation of our freedom will be achieved by a national commitment to self-discipline, industry, loyalty, unity, and an abiding respect for Christian values and the rule of law. Education plays a starring role in the achievement of these ideals. How can a change in the public service at the Ministry of Education ignite a change in the nation? The answer to this question, Mr. Speaker, is clear. 19 years ago, I had the privilege of joining the public service as an educator. Since that time, I have served in a ministry whose mission has remained steadfast: to provide all persons in the Bahamas an opportunity to receive a quality education that will equip them with the necessary beliefs, knowledge, attitudes, and skills required for life, both in a democratic society guided by Christian values and in an interdependent, changing world. What a powerful mission. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, education is the axis upon which our nation turns. And it is public servants within the Ministry of Education who have the awesome responsibility of delivering this essential education. Now, the mission was written with output in mind, with service to the public in mind, but I believe, Mr. Speaker, that the public service offered through the Ministry of Education, and indeed the public service at large, would be transformed if we turned this mission inward. There is a fundamentally timeless principle: you cannot give what you do not have. Realizing the mission of the Ministry of Education would be more effective if all persons began with the persons within the public service. Yes, a public service committed to providing all officers within it opportunities to receive quality training that will equip them with the necessary ideals, knowledge, and skills to deliver exceptional public service would result in improved delivery of education and public sector services nationwide. First of all, Mr. Speaker, let us look at the ideals necessary to ignite a positive change. The Committee on Standards in Public Life in the United Kingdom lists the following 7 principles as the ideals that should govern public service: selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, leadership. What would a public service look like that adhered strictly to these principles? How would a nation benefit from a public service that passed on these ideals to the next generation? Now, Mr. Speaker, it is not my intention to imply that the public service as it stands now is devoid of these principles. The many public service servants that are being honored this week as officers of the year in their various ministries are testimonies of ideals that are already there. In my ministry alone, Mr. Speaker, the Officer of the Year, Mrs. Anita Glinton, is known as an ambassador extraordinaire. Within her can be found the 7 principles mentioned earlier on humble display. She is involved daily in selfless acts, desiring purely to help the members of the public as she answers the ministry's telephones. Her integrity is well known to all. She holds herself and those around her to the highest standards of accountability. She is open and honest in all her dealings, and her superior public service has set her apart as a leader among her peers. What is even more powerful than her outstanding service is the guidance she gives to those younger public servants who have the good fortune to work alongside her. Her spark has ignited all around her to emulate her service, resulting in members of the public having a telephone experience at the Ministry of Education of which we all can be proud. I am certain, Mr. Speaker, that this story, with some variation, can be repeated by all of the honorable members in this place when recounting the officers of the year at their various ministries. But a minority of public servants, of which such accounts can be told, is not enough. Change can only come when officers like Mrs. Glinton become the rule rather than the exception. An investment in opportunities for every member of the public service to engage in consistent, intense, flexible on-the-job training to instill the 7 principles required of public service would ignite a positive change that would yield unimaginable dividends now and in the future. Achieving the first mission, Mr. Speaker, will pave the way for realizing of the second part of the mission, providing training that will equip public servants with the knowledge necessary to transform their life and work. In the document Vision 2030, a shared vision for education in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, submitted November 16, 2015, committee members stated the following, and I quote, "Research shows that poorly educated human capital compromises macroeconomic stability, stagnates inclusive growth, reduces a country's ability to be globally competitive, leads to a decrease in tax revenue and GDP, causes increased demand on social services, health services, and safety services, and contributes to high levels of crime and poor health." Indeed, Mr. Speaker, the negative repercussions of poor education are many. An examination of the posts available in the public service would reveal that many entry-level positions require little or no qualifications for entry. And while this fact itself is not disturbing, what is disturbing, Mr. Speaker, is the ability for a public servant to remain in this unqualified state indefinitely. There are civil servants in the offices and cubicles of the public service who are no better off in terms of their qualifications than they were when they joined the service 10, 20, 30, and in some cases even 40 years ago. Is it any wonder then, Mr. Speaker, that the government of the Bahamas, in the speech from the throne on page 10, lamented that the mediocrity in the performance of duties have led to the inefficient delivery of public sector services? How can we change this? How can we ensure greater educational gains for public servants across the sector? Well, time does not permit me, Mr. Speaker, to explore the many avenues available, but I will mention 2. First, a qualification upgrade can become a condition of continued service. Already it is a condition for upward mobility, but even those public servants who are consistent in their posts should be encouraged to improve themselves as much as possible. Secondly, special scholarships can be set aside for all public servants who wish to achieve higher education, much the same way funds are allocated in each budget cycle at the Ministry of Education for the upgrading of teachers' aides and untrained teachers. Now, while the viability of these options may provide the basis for another debate, what cannot be debated, Mr. Speaker, is this. The increase in knowledge that greater qualifications provide would lead to a transformed public service. As Henry Brum once stated, education makes a people easy to lead, but difficult to drive, easy to govern, but impossible to enslave. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the ideals and commitment to integrity and training will go a long way to igniting a positive change in our nation and will make possible the realization of the third and final part of the mission, providing public servants the opportunity to develop the necessary skills required for life in an interdependent, changing world. The key ingredient needed to develop skills, Mr. Speaker, is innovation. New, creative, imaginative ideas emanate from an atmosphere where innovation is prized. The greatest change in the public service can be realized through a generation of public servants committed to new, outside-of-the-box approaches to the policies and procedures of the service. Innovation leads to transformation. We see examples of this already at the Ministry of Education, with the move from paper applications to online applications, which has transformed the scholarship application process at our ministry. A greater number of students from across the country now have greater access to scholarships because they can apply for it online. There is no more need to travel to New Providence to deliver scholarship documents. And this is just one example, Mr. Speaker, of how innovative technology can revolutionize the delivery of essential services, especially for our Family Island clientele. But how many of our public servants possess the necessary skills to produce and maintain these technologies? A commitment to the development of technological skills within the public service through education, Mr. Speaker, is a national imperative. Dr. Ashish Kumar, professor of Aalto University in Finland, underscores this need in his video, Do You Know? In it, he reflects that the top 10 in-demand jobs in the year 2010 did not exist in 2004. He goes on to note that we are currently preparing students for jobs that don't exist, using technologies that have not yet been invented in order to solve problems that we don't know are problems yet. Yes, technology is developing fast. In order to ignite change, the public service must develop along with it. Nelson Mandela once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." Yes, a change in the public service can indeed ignite a change in the nation. And that change must begin in the branch of the public service responsible for education. I leave you, Mr. Speaker, with the words of the artist John Legend, who reminds us, we're the generation that can't afford to wait. The future started yesterday, and we're already late. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Order that the resolution be brought up. It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas over the years, the highly educated, trained, and skilled persons employed in the public service of the Bahamas have proven that they possess the wherewithal to deliver efficient and effective services on behalf of the government of the Bahamas. And whereas ensuring the government's obligations to its citizens and others are met in a timely fashion are among the duties and tasks performed and executed with high levels of professionalism by public officers. And whereas the government of the Bahamas, being fully cognizant of the need for public officers to remain responsive to the ever-present local and international demands for the timely delivery of government services, continues to implement its schedule of targeted reforms in key areas of the public service. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the members assembled in this Parliament will debate how a change in the public service can ignite change in our country, as many. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, honourable members of this House, and to all of my colleagues throughout the length and breadth of the Bahamas, good morning.
Good morning.
In this moment, in this setting, I wish to affirm my belief that the Bahamas Public Service is well able to enact change in our nation. To understand whether or not our goal of change is feasible, one must first understand how to define change. One must understand the range and the dexterity that it provides. A question has been posed: how can the Bahamas Public Service ignite change in our nation? The answer to this age-old question for many might be by increasing the badly depleted workforce, by raising the numbers. To this I say, Mr. Speaker, quantity is no better than quality. Mr. Speaker, between the years 2012 through 2016, the Bahamas Public Service has raised its numbers marginally by 6,015 officers. Mr. Speaker, further, I wish to bring your attention to a dialogue made by KPMG, which was an accounting firm. KPMG disclosed that unfunded public sector liabilities currently stand at $1.5 billion. With the expected increase in the public service, this number is set to increase itself to a sum of $2.5 billion by the year 2022. So we see, Mr. Speaker, that it is in no way feasible for us to continue to grow such a workforce without some sort of necessary reform. To this end, I believe that the key to the public service enacting its goal of change on the nation lies within its provision for evolution. This will call for the modernization of systems and structures, even technology relative to the Bahamas Public Service. Mr. Speaker, the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services has never been more prepared to provide its goal of change. It has never been more prepared to become change agents. Although the department, like many others, has seen its fair share of shortcomings, what cannot be refuted is its commitment to stomping out the microbial parasite known as corruption. However, Mr. Speaker, on many days, this is seemingly a challenge as the department lacks the essential equipment needed to perpetuate such a goal. A wise author, Buckminster Fuller, once said, "To change something, you do not fight with the existing reality thereof, but rather you make a new one that renders the old model obsolete." Mr. Speaker, it is with this notion in mind that I wish to express the need for newer structural development and technological advancement at the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services. Mr. Speaker, a structure once built to accommodate the likes of some 800 inmates is now forced to contain the likes of 1,902 inmates. This is more than 2 times its intended capacity. Mr. Speaker, I've had the privilege to tour 4 facilities worldwide, and I gained a greater appreciation for how a mere facility would be able to hold the criminal element at bay, and by extension, I've gained an appreciation for basically how this could eradicate the number of officers within our prison system. Further, along the lines of equipment, the lack thereof, the police officers and defense force officers, most of them go to work equipped with a sidearm, a firearm. This will be used in the capacity of protecting that individual as well as the general public. The responsibilities of the corrections officers are seemingly the same, protecting themselves as well as the general public. But the average prison officer, or corrections officer if you will, goes to work armed with a can of pepper spray, to which not all of them own. Mr. Speaker, I would like to, in this moment, stress again the need for newer structural advancement. One might ask, how does structural advancement affect our nation? Well, to answer this question, I am forced to reflect upon a story once told to me by my grandfather. And the story goes like this. There was once a man down on his luck. He had lost his job with no way to provide for his family. He had just become the father of a bouncing baby boy. Due to his disposition, the man resorted to stealing. Yes, I will never forget the look of humor that my grandfather exclaimed when he told me this man was arrested for stealing a box of cereal. He said, "Yes, son, The man was a serial thief. The man was tried, convicted, and sent to prison. During his incarceration in prison, he faced issues of an undersized structure which led to misclassification which saw him paired with the likes of murderers. Yes, Mr. Speaker, he was a serial thief paired with killers. Over time, his primitive instincts grew marginally. Due to the nature of his offense, he was released a short time later on an unforgiving society. 1 year later, Mr. Speaker, saw the man being posted on a wanted bulletin. Yes, the man that was once a serial thief was now a serial killer. So now we see very vividly how an undersized structure can have great effects on our society. In my conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I would like to stress the need for greater structural development at the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services and technological advancements as the department seeks to perpetuate its goal of essential service to the members of the general public and its goal of providing rehabilitation to each and every inmate incarcerated therein. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many, the Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for the Treasury Department.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, change. As a representative of the public treasury, we have done a survey surrounding this topic involving 20 individuals. How do we in the public sector ignite change for future generations? Change is inevitable. Change is constant. Change is the law of life. Damian Thompson said it best. If you can change your mindset, you have the ability to change your world. Changing the mindset of the public sector can be the most effective, cost-efficient, predominant, and yet again the most powerful tool that can be utilized to ignite change. Changing the mindset creates stronger, effective communication, advancement opportunities in technology, and fosters accountability. Mr. Speaker, accountability is defined by businessdictionary.com as the obligation of an individual or organization to account for its activities, accept responsibility for them, and to disclose the results in a transparent manner. The importance of accountability in our government is the ability to hold employees and management responsible for completing assignments, making decisions, and serving the people. Our Bahamian government must abide by the laws, but most of all, they must comply with the needs of the country they serve. The urbanity of government agencies are influenced by general orders, which construct the way we operate. An example, the Code of Conduct. Qualified or unqualified, individuals that gain experience can eventually do their job. However, it may prove challenging to immerse someone's personality into the culture of their work environment. In a 2016 study by Ryan Vogel, he asserted, if you have too many people who are exactly the same in an organization, it can make the organization stagnant and resistant to change, which is a drive of innovation and optimization. Mr. Speaker, change is more affordable than the cost of temporary fixes. Every problem that is improperly addressed rather than finding the appropriate solution to rectify it is destined to remanifest itself. Maybe not today, tomorrow, maybe not in the same form or manner, but it will come back to haunt you like reopened potholes after the rain. Mr. Speaker, we must create a culture of accountability. The perception that upward mobility and job security in the public sector is predicated on affiliation to politicians or allegiance to political parties is detrimental to the development of a professional, efficient, and productive civil service. A Civil Service Reform Act should be enacted to eliminate this informal patronage system, which has contributed to victimization, low moral, and mediocrity in the civil service. Profound words from Pastor Carl Fred Curry on public service reform. However, Mr. Speaker, accountability in government agencies is more than just efficient internal operations. Ultimately, government accountability is about maintaining the trust between the government, its entities, and of course, the people. 60% of respondents in the survey which we conducted indicated that they did not trust government employees and the service they render. Management is crucial to making sure that all employees abide by the company's policies, be able to identify arising or lingering problems, and be able to rectify them in a timely manner. A workplace is at its peak productivity when managers are actively involved in monitoring the levels of work that is being produced by its employees and acknowledging all weaknesses and strengths. Accessing and acknowledging these factors allows managers to properly assign employees to areas and tasks that they are more likely to blossom and be more efficient, thereby avoiding misplacement of employees. Dr. Teresa Kabuling, professor of management, Shandaria School of Business, showed that there was a correlation between proper placement of employees and overall employee performance and productivity. Additionally, an effective training regimen can be enforced that allows room for innovation. The best way for accountability and trust to be formulated is through active, open communication. The lack of communication creates room for misinterpretations, assumptions, conflict, poor customer service, and overall diminishing productivity. In the survey referenced earlier, the question was given, as a government employee, do you feel as if you are involved with the everyday task of your workplace? 55% of our Bahamian people stated that they do not feel important in the eyes of their employers, that they are truly involved with. Accountability also comprises of government allowing the country to move with the rest of the world in a timely manner, thereby being able to participate in an increasingly global environment. Mark Kennedy states that technology is powered through the need to do a lot more with a lot less, using new tools to make our lives easier. Technology not only allows for minimalized workload and a timely service, but also innovation. But Mr. Speaker, before we innovate, we must elevate. Elevate what we have right now and use it at its highest level. Every system, service, and opportunity should be utilized at its maximum capacity. Are we using our work systems at its fullest extent? Do we take advantage of the training courses that are given? Do our places of work allow us to enable this training? Do we know about these courses? Mr. Speaker, 80% of our people said no. What kind of public service are we running if we cannot properly communicate with each other? Before we introduce new advancements to the public sector, we must properly and thoroughly detail what exactly we are adding into it. Purposes and benefits should be properly highlighted. This is where transparency, communication, and technology connect. Information must be circulated in a pure, transparent, and timely manner. As I ran myself back on topic, Mr. Speaker, allow me to pose this analogy. Imagine going to pay a bill. You must first go upstairs to request payment. Wait while the employee records your payment for file. Then they have to send you back downstairs to make the payment, only to have you walk back upstairs after you have paid so that your receipt can also be put on record. Don't get me wrong. If anyone is looking to get some cardio in, it's the way to go. But for the most part, I think we can all agree that this process is a bit tedious and time-consuming. Does it get the job done? Yes, absolutely. But But the goal should never be to simply get the job done. The goal is to make sure it is done in the most effective way possible. I have addressed the problem. Allow me to attempt offering a solution. Electronic documents, e-documents. A customer can request their payment, then the two corresponding sections or agencies can transpose the necessary information to validate, verify, and action each payment electronically without the customer having to waste time and energy on one simple payment. But I digress. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, we must stop fantasizing about change if we're going to allow the seeds of stagnation to continuously bear fruit. Galatians 6 verse 7. Do not be conceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. We cannot continuously look at what got the job done, but start looking for what can get the job done better, faster, safer. If we want to improve in the future, we cannot continuously restructure the present to mirror the past. Because I can go on and on about improving communication, finding innovative ways to use technology, and making everyone accountable. But change will never arrive if we do not go there and make it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. At this time, I'd like to recognize members of the gallery, in particular, Deputy Treasurer of the Bahamas, Ms. Donna Delancey. We welcome you to the House, ma'am, and other members of the National Public Service Recognition Week Committee, employees from the Ministry of the Public Service, and other senior officers and retirees who are with us in the gallery this morning. We welcome you to the Parliament. Hi, Commissioner. On the right hand. As many, the Chair recognizes the Honorable Member from the Ministry of Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, colleagues, good morning. I'm delighted to participate in the 18th Public Service Week mock parliamentary session debate on the topic, the public service, igniting a positive change for future generations. A public service consists of the government and all publicly controlled and funded agencies and enterprises and other entities that deliver public programs. Public service includes the provision of goods and services such as healthcare, legal aid, education, transport, the removal of waste, or initiatives to promote gender equality and women's empowerment. Public service is organized by the government in order to benefit all of the people in a particular society or community. In the Bahamas, the public service is the largest employer. As an employee in the public sector, our mandate is about accomplishing the vision and mission of the government and making a positive difference. The public sector, with its diverse fields, has attracted persons from across sections of disciplines. It provides valuable work experience. It allows for mentoring and networking opportunities. And in some instances, it provides better work-life balance. Governments continue to face challenges and pressures in this ever-changing global environment. We are facing strong pressures to downsize. According to one theory, agencies at all levels of government are facing strong ideological pressures to downsize. Such pressures, among other things, threaten historic notions of achieving efficiency and effectiveness, along with accountability. It has been widely assumed in recent years that advancements in information technology and performance measurement provide adequate replacements for the historic notion that accountability flows up the hierarchy to elected officials and the sovereignty. Whatever the challenges that may arise, our government has the God-given responsibility to find and implement initiatives for solutions. In recent times, the Office of the Prime Minister has launched a number of such initiatives, including the Public Service Modernization Unit, the Prime Minister's Delivery Unit, and the Performance Monitoring and Public Financial Management Reform Project. The Public Service Modernization Unit will tackle the update of the public service. This initiative will definitely ignite positive change as it is intended to uplift the public service and bring in the best and brightest Bahamians. Mr. Speaker, can you picture this? The Prime Minister's Delivery Unit, which is meant to ascertain the needs of Bahamian citizens and the trends of key indicators affecting their lives. The 6 key priorities of the Prime Minister's Delivery Unit will initially focus on the Over-the-Hill Rejuvenation Project, land reform, energy reform and infrastructure, ease of doing business, eradication, education, and safety and security. Can you picture these initiatives being met? The third initiative is the Performance Monitoring and Public Financial Management Reform. The government has partnered with the Inter-American Development Bank in efforts to strengthen the statistical data gathering. Mr. Speaker, again I ask, can you picture having an available, high quality and relevant data? The Department of Gender and Family Affairs, which was established in October 2016, expands on the work of the previous Bureau of Women's Affairs, which was established in 1981. The Department of Gender and Family Affairs was established to address the issue of gender inequality. Its mandate is to coordinate, advocate, and inform policy for and on behalf of women and girls, as well as men and boys. Mr. Speaker, can you picture a Bahamas that affords equal opportunities, not only to women and men, but to our future leaders of tomorrow? Adhering as far as possible to regional and international legal frameworks will aid in achieving our goals. 2 of the international conventions that the Department of Gender and Family Affairs has oversight of include the Convention on the Prevention of Punishment and Eradication of Violence Against Women, also called the Convention of Belém de Pará, and the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, also called the CEDAW. The current work program of the Department of Gender and Family Affairs is divided into 2 broad areas of focus to address gender-based violence and empowerment, including economic and political empowerment. In a recent mapping, 2018, by the Department of Gender and Family Affairs on women and leadership positions, results revealed that in the area of public service, the percentage of women was well over 50%. Of all permanent secretaries, 65% were women. And of all directors, 78% were women. However, in the category of politics, 43% were senators, 12% were parliamentarians, and only a mean 6% hold the position of cabinet minister. The purpose of the Department of Gender and Family Affairs is to make gender equality a foundation of nation building. Despite the many decades of advocacy and a record number of women running for public office, there appears to be a culture that do not support women in political leadership. 56 years ago, women including Mary Ingram, Georgiana Simonet, Eugenia Lockhart, and Mabel Walker, Doris Johnson, led the suffrage movement, which brought about the right to vote for women in the Bahamas. I have no doubt that the ongoing awareness-raising initiatives and advocacy and programs that ignite positive change in the hearts of our people to ensure that future generations of young women will pursue, and not only pursue, but enjoy careers in leadership. In efforts to achieve political empowerment, the Department of Gender and Family Affairs hosted 2 cohorts on leadership for women in politics and decision-making in collaboration with the University of the Bahamas and the Caribbean Institute for Women in Leadership. Mr. Speaker, the road ahead may be long and the work may be great. However, the department will continue to partner with local, regional, and international organizations in its programming efforts to achieve goal number 5 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. In November of this year, the Department of Gender and Family Affairs, in collaboration with the National Women's Advisory Council and local NGOs, will celebrate National Women's Week in commemoration of the enfranchisement of women in the Bahamas on the 26th of November, 1962. One of the initiatives planned for this year is a leadership conclave for women and girls. Mr. Speaker, the department is doing its best and its part to ignite positive change for future generations. However, partnership of other agencies is not only welcome, but needed. The department is cognizant that collaboration in the public service is key to igniting positive change. Intersectoral collaborations were held with Pan American Health Organization, the Zonta Clubs of the Bahamas, just to name a few, on programs to address gender-based violence. The Department of Gender and Family Affairs collaborates with a number of United Nations agencies to promote gender equality and women's empowerment. These agencies include the UN Women, the United Nations Development Fund, the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, and the United Nations Population Fund. Mr. Speaker, a new culture of collaboration is necessary for our goals to be achieved. The concept of whole-of-government approach may be necessary. In recent years, there has been a change in emphasis away from disaggregation and single-purpose organizations toward a more integrated approach to public service delivery. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. No, you go ahead, conclude.
In concluding, Mr. Speaker, igniting positive change for the future will require each government agency to collaborate across and between departments through institutional arrangements so that the system is holistic, synergistic, and coordinated in the delivery of public service. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you. As many, the Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for the Department of Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is no doubt in my mind that the Bahamas government has some of the best and brightest minds in the public service. Just look around this honorable house this morning and take a glimpse at the ambitious, brave, competent, efficient, and dedicated public officers who sit before you. I am indeed proud to call them my colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I wish to also salute the hard-working and dedicated staff of the Departments of Social Services and Rehabilitative Welfare Services, who I am honored to represent today. This versatile team of approximately 500 support, clerical, technical, and administrative staff deployed throughout New Providence, Grand Bahama, and all of the inhabited family islands are the glue that holds the social fabric of this nation together. They work tirelessly to ensure that the service they provide is provided with care to all those who are in need. Mr. Speaker, it is my fervent belief that if public service officers are to remain responsive to the ever-present local and international demands for timely and professional service, the government should adopt the reforms established by the first public service officer and social worker to ever walk the earth. His methods have been tried, tested, proven effective for thousands of years. He was described as a change agent, advocate, mediator, active listener, and friend. Many testified that he fought for social justice on behalf of those who could not fight for themselves. He was the protector of children. He brought relief to the poor and people with physical and intellectual disabilities. He visited and brought respite to the imprisoned, the sick, and even the dead. He gave hope to the hopeless as he shared the good news and empowered all who would listen. He provided for his followers, Mr. Speaker, and prepared them to be leaders. He praised and promoted, forged partnerships, and protected them. This public service officer, in the person of Jesus the Christ, not only ignited change in the nation, but the whole world with 5 positive P's that were aforementioned. The first P, Mr. Speaker, is to provide. Staff need to be provided with a safe and comfortable working environment. They should be provided with the proper tools and adequate materials in order to produce timely and effective service to the general public and colleagues alike. Staff should be provided with compassionate supervisors that possess transformational leadership skills and model the work ethic they want the staff to portray. Staff should be provided, Mr. Speaker, with, my apologies, staff should be provided with copies of legislation, universal best practices, standardized policies and protocols that govern the work performed in their specific units and divisions. These provisions would result, Mr. Speaker, in a well-informed, competent public service officer. The second positive P is to prepare. Staff should be properly prepared to execute their duties. Proper and timely orientation exercises are crucial to the smooth transition of staff. This will also help them to identify the best fit as it relates to their work assignments. Rotations should not appear to be an afterthought. Staff should be afforded reasonable notice to mentally and physically prepare for the impending adjustment. The late Dr. Miles Monroe, in his book, Passing It On, noted that the greatest obligation for a leader is preparing for your replacement. Hence, succession planning should be implemented to prepare staff for upward mobility and ensure smooth retirement processes. Mr. Speaker, the third positive P is to praise and promote. PP. Staff members go above and beyond the call of duty on a regular basis to make certain that the needs of the clients are met in a timely manner. They present proposals that can improve service in their respective departments and empower clients. Staff seek out national and international training opportunities to assist with enhancing their skills. It is therefore pertinent that these efforts are praised and validated to provide encouragement and to boost staff morale. Timely feedback regarding staff concerns encourage future participation and builds confidence in the leadership. It is equally important to review staff progress regularly so that there could be timely and impartial promotion exercises. Staff will then be motivated to excel and offer excellent service. My colleague from Education mentioned that there are staff who are sitting for decades that have not improved. Well, Mr. Speaker, at the Department of Social Services and Rehabilitative Welfare Services, it is the reverse. We have staff who are qualified, master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, but they still sit as case aides and trainee officers.
My Lord, my Lord.
The fourth positive P, Mr. Speaker, is partnership. It is vital to the efficient operation of all the Department of Social Services and Rehabilitative Welfare Services staff to partner with the relevant external agencies in order to provide the best service for our clients. The fifth positive P is to protect. Protection against health hazards, verbal, emotional, and physical abuse is essential in the reform process. Panic buttons, scanners, and metal detectors should be installed in offices to protect staff and clients. Properly trained security personnel should also be posted in all buildings to protect staff and visitors from harm and to deter delinquent behavior. Government-issued vehicles should be assigned to units and divisions to limit personal targeting. Self-defense classes should be offered to all staff members who sometimes conduct field visits alone due to shortage of staff. Risk allowance and health insurance should be offered to the staff. The staff should also be provided, Mr. Speaker, with legal protection. Legislation and licensure are needed to recognize and legitimize the field of social work in the Bahamas. As most technical officers in the Department of Social Services and the Department of Rehabilitative Welfare Services, Mr. Speaker, are social workers, this will protect against personal liability and cause social work salaries to be competitive globally. Mr. Speaker, hurt people hurt people. In order for a change in the public service to ignite a change in our nation, we must first provide staff with essential tools, prepare them for success, praise and promote them, forge partnerships, and protect them. The empowered people then will empower people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many, the Chair recognizes Honorable Member for the Department of Meteorology.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For a moment, Mr. Speaker, just imagine a vehicle moving along a roadway and suddenly the engine stops. That vehicle isn't going anywhere unless it's on a hill. Mr. Speaker, pleasant good morning to you and a pleasant good morning to the honorable members and especially to the fine constituents of the Department of Meteorology.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of the esteemed constituents of the Department of Meteorology. Also, I wish to extend my gratitude to the leadership and the people, or the officers rather, of that great institution who repose such confidence in me to be their voice in this hallowed chamber. Mr. Speaker, in a recent address to Parliament, the Honorable Brensel Roll, Minister of the Public Service and National Insurance, said these words, and I quote, "The public service is that engine that runs the country to ensure that the mandate of the government is fulfilled." He went on to say, "We have a commitment to provide education, health services, individual protection, and natural security, infrastructural development, and a stable economy, just to name a few." Mr. Speaker, he also went on to say, "The Ministry of the Public Service and National Insurance is aware of this charge and the importance of enhancing the quality of life of public servants so that we may gain the maximum benefit from their services. In this vein, the Ministry of the Public Service and National Insurance continues its role to implement strategies to identify and manage talent, promote and compensate deserving officers, provide training opportunities at the expense of the government, utilize technology to improve the way we do business, and provide a healthy and safe working environment for public servants. We are challenged," he says, "every day to advancing public services effectively, efficiently, and equitably, with a general focus on the public good of citizens. This mission requires an unprecedented level of understanding and cooperation. So, today, the activities and celebrations this week represents a new call for action, and we must answer this call," unquote. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister concluded by saying public officers are dedicated to the public good. Mr. Speaker, today, it is said that the public service is comprised of approximately in excess of 20,000 officers. The majority of which, sir, I believe, are hardworking, qualified, and dedicated sons and daughters of our Bahama land. These wonderful men and women serve in various capacities throughout the service, and it's the engine that I spoke about earlier that keeps the country functioning. Mr. Speaker, I wish to extol the virtues of the Department of Meteorology. This entity has the vital responsibility to provide high-quality meteorological and climatological information on a timely basis to be used by the public at large for the purpose of research, education, and the protection of lives and property. This entity has its genesis in the aviation ministry sometime before the Second World War, but became a department, a full-fledged department in 1973, and has grown significantly over the years in order to meet the demands of a developing nation. Mr. Speaker, this department provides weather forecasts daily for the public, marine, and aviation communities. Climatological information is also available upon request. In addition, observations are made, that is, meteorological observations are made and collected daily and in some cases hourly. Mr. Speaker, this department has the awesome task of providing warnings for the threats of severe weather, tropical storms, hurricanes, and seismic activities, in particular, tsunami warnings. Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that change in the public service can ignite change in our nation. Mr. Speaker, I'm certain that you would have heard the phrase used often. Change is inevitable. The late great Sam Cooke sang a song, a change is going to come. This song has since been made contemporary by modern day artists. Mr. Speaker, the department has undertaken the necessary steps to embrace change by trying to have the organization performance just to meet with that of the international community standards. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with our commitment to the ICAO, that is the International Civil Aviation Organization, and its global demand for aviation safety, the Department of Meteorology officially implemented a quality management system, normally and suggestions of its aviation products and services from stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Meteorology designed and implemented a contemporary assessment plan, a competency rather, assessment plan for the aeronautical meteorological staff. All operational aeronautical meteorological personnel have been assessed. The assessment period began 7th of November 2014 and ended the 27th of January 2015. This is progress, Mr. Speaker. The assessors were chosen from within the senior ranks of the department. According to the competency plan, the competency assessment will continue every 3 years for existing staff and 6 months after certification for new staff members. Moving forward, Mr. Speaker, the Department of Meteorology is awaiting the publication of the ISO 9001, that is 2015 Quality Management System requirements to review and make any necessary adjustment and amendments to the process document. Following these adjustments or amendments, the department will continue to pursue the ISO certification of its quality management system. Mr. Speaker, in 2016, the government of Bahamas engaged the services of Vaisala, a Finland-based company, to provide the Department of Meteorology with the acquisition of 3 Doppler weather radars, along with 16 automatic weather observing stations. These weather observing stations will assist in the expansion of our existing observational platform. Further, Mr. Speaker, the increased data collection will assist in our commitment to our contribution to the intergovernmental panel on climate change, which is a technical arm of the United Nations, in particular the World Meteorological Organization. Moreover, it will help with the improvement of our weather products, Mr. Speaker. This is indeed a testament of the highly educated, trained, and skilled persons employed in the service of the Bahamas, and have proven that they possess the wherewithal to deliver efficient and effective services on behalf of the government of the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, notably, the department also acquired a product known as Metacast. This is an end-to-end software solution used for the preparation, creation, and playout of weather graphics for use in TV broadcasts and other digital media. Specifically, Metacast is aimed at producing content automatically or operator-assisted based. Given the time at hand, Mr. Speaker, I'll move along to our training and qualification. Mr. Speaker, training is essential to the quality of product that we provide and the need for our officers to remain responsive to the ever-present local and international demands for the timely delivery of government services. Currently, there are a number of staff members undertaking training both locally and abroad. Mr. Speaker, in order to do justice to the resolution table, I wish to consider the attributes of the wider public service. In doing so, Mr. Speaker, from a legal basis, the functions and the powers of the Public Service Commission were set out in detail in the Constitution, Article 107 to 127, and the Public Service Commission regulations. The Commission's role is to ensure impartiality and integrity of appointments and promotions in the public service, and to ensure that recommendations for appointments and promotions are based on qualifications and merit and are free from patronage or pressure. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with the table resolution, it's recommended that staff of the training unit, that is, be strengthened and upgraded. The Commission endorsed the present practice by the training unit of contracting outside lecturers, including retired senior public officers, to conduct needed training and assessment programs for the training unit. Mr. Speaker, the public service has been proactive, hence the planning of the Bahamas National Development Plan, Vision 2040, funded in part by the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB. The NDB, that is National Development Plan, launched in November 2014 with the aim of addressing the country's challenges in 4 key areas: the economy, governance, human capital, and the environment. In the essence of time, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to move along to the e-business at hand in the public service. Mr. Speaker, in 2014, the government of Bahamas, through the process of strengthening public procurement systems, implemented a system to receive grants with a grant from the Inter-American Development Bank for the creation and adoption of electronic registry of suppliers to increase competitive participation in public procurement system throughout the region. And just to give you examples of what the e-business is all about and how it assists in the smooth operation of the public service. We can now do companies, from a business perspective, one can carry out company search, value-added tax, and from a citizen and resident standpoint, death registration, incorporation of a regular company, and for non-residents, marriage registration and the likes. In conclusion, sir, this vibrant entity known as the Public Service is poised and ready to ensure the government obligations to its citizens and others are met in a timely fashion, and among the duties and tasks performed and executed with a high level of professionalism by public officers. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many, the Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for the Ministry of Transport and Local Government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'd like to say it's an honor and a privilege to stand in this House of Assembly where great leaders, and if I may, such as the Most Honorable Sir Lyndon Findling, the Honorable Hubert Alexander Ingram, the Honorable Perry Christie, and now the Honorable Hubert Alexander Minnis now stands to do business not only for the public service, but also for the country at large. Mr. Speaker, our topic, can change in the public service ignite change in our nation? Mr. Speaker, I would say yes. And I say yes with an open heart. Mr. Speaker, the public service is considered the body that propels the government's work in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. For many years, it has been considered an inefficient, bureaucratic hindrance to progress in the country. Like most bureaucracy, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas is managed by a system of excessive, complicated, and rule-driven organizations. The collective work of the government continues to be strife due to long, complicated vetting and approval systems. Mr. Speaker, it is often said that the Bahamas bureaucracy system is modeled after that of Great Britain. At the time of the implementation, the country was controlled and managed by the British. It was a system that was put in place to ensure that the subjects adhered to the rules and regulations of the system. Individuals who diverted from the rules were punished through a process of hearings, and later, if found guilty, sir, they were dismissed from the public service. This complicated and sometimes confusing model has made it challenging and time-consuming doing business in the country, both for Bahamians and non-Bahamians. Let me repeat that again, sir. Both for Bahamians and non-Bahamians. While there has been several attempts to change this model of managing the public service, very little has been accomplished in moving this effort forward. It is therefore necessary that a concerted effort is made to plan for modernization of this archaic and outdated system of management. Today, our public service is challenged with increased workload for employees, skill gaps, negative impact, low morale, top talent, and difficult adapting to the cutting edge of technology. And of course, working conditions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, addressing these challenges will help to build morale and definitely impact the public service positively, thus impacting the quality of service provided by our employees. This is not going to be an easy task, Mr. Speaker. During this period of change, all participants must understand that it is a process and not an event. It can be messy and very deliberating. Critical to changing an organization like the public service is to have a dedicated change agent or group of individuals to steer the change process. This individual or group of individuals must be properly trained and have a complete understanding of the change. In addition, having periods of celebration can also sustain the change. More importantly, a plan for sustaining the change will ensure it sticks long after the change has been implemented. Mr. Speaker, I now move to the most important component, leadership. Leadership is critical to change in the public service. Because leaders provide the impetus for real change to take place, such leadership contributes to the morale of the organization. High morale in the workplace is also an essential ingredient to igniting a fire for change in this public service. Morale is caught, thus the need for well-trained managers and leaders who can build teams. Leaders who can demonstrate a sense of transformative leadership and not an autocratic form of leadership, which is rarely effective. Mr. Speaker, during the same thing, over and over again, and expecting a different result is called insanity. If you continue doing the same thing, you're not making any sense. Therefore, there must be a paradigm shift within our leaders in the public service to expect to see a difference. You must have that paradigm shift. There has to be a change in the proactive communication with internal and external customers throughout our country. Leaders must push for such change even when there's pullback, because you will get pullback. But some employees will catch on, Mr. Speaker. When such morale exists, people will become more trusting to each other and willing to share and ask questions. There's no doubt that such change will resonate into high-quality customer service. Who can make this change a reality? You, and even me. We must make that change, sir. Leaders must also understand that roadblocks can derail change and cause major setbacks in attaining the required outcome. It is therefore necessary that leaders anticipate the roadblocks and ways to remove such in order to ensure the desired outcome is attained. Leaders must be calm, level-headed, and be thoroughly trained in order to ensure success. Such change is how the public service operates, should resonate into more effective and efficient agencies which provide quality service to the general public. Mr. Speaker, one example is the move by the Bahamas government to automate key services such as taxation, driver's and vehicle licenses, passports, customs, and immigration. All of these agencies, sir, should examine their policies and procedures and ensure that they are documented and all staff are familiar with, and training to carry out these various processes to ensure the customer experience is positive. Note that well-trained staff will provide high-quality service. Therefore, ongoing training is critical to sustaining change. We must always have ongoing training. Mr. Speaker, it is not that several of these government agencies are receiving positive. It is noted, that several of these government agencies are receiving positive reviews, as most have embraced the notion that embodied the change, that of the customer, is critical to the organization's success. The successful agencies have bought into the notion that both employees and non-employees are customers. Therefore, how one accommodates the internal customer will determine how the external customer is treated. We have the blueprint. We have the blueprint for change. Changing the service, by extension, changing our nation. Let us together examine what exists and use it to complete the change for a betterment of the public service and our nation. I close with this, Mr. Speaker. The great leader Mahatma Gandhi once said, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." I thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Chair, Chair now recognizes the Honorable Member for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I rise on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I'm honored to represent them here. in this humble chamber. Honorable members, it gives me great pleasure today to be here, and I'd like to say with the same breath that the Lord is my shepherd and I shall not want. Mr. Speaker, do you think change in the public service can ignite change in our nation? Colleagues, I stand to address several problems that have plagued the public service from perhaps its inception and continue to stagnate its growth, hence the growth of the nation. In the real world, I'm a public servant of 30 years experience. So I have asked myself a question that I found have been asked to others. Do you remember the exact moment you chose to go into the public service? And I ask you to reflect on that. Although we are here to make a difference, there is no assurance that we are ready to make the hard choices to really get something done that will make a positive change in the way the public service is run, or change the public service servant image. Mr. Speaker, it is fair to say that with the passage of each government administration, political party, there's a calling for the improvement of the public service that emerges as a national issue. During the Christie government, PLP, many proposals were implemented, and similarly, the present chairman of the Free National Movement, Mr. Calmer, commented as much when he noted that we have to look at how we can get Bahamians to understand that we must come to work hard, and we must put the right people in the right places. He further noted, we need to understand that you, the public servant, work for the Bahamian people, not for F&M, not for the PLP, or whatever government is in power. When it comes to getting the people's business done, you, the public servant, must do the right thing. Bahamas. The second is the willingness of the government to assume, however correct, its share of responsibility for the development and actions of the public service. Mr. Speaker, there is no question that the public service has made progress on some fronts in recent years, but the problems that have been more visible and remain so are issues concerning salaries, promotions, proper job placement in the service, and, unfortunately, political tribalism in the service. Skeptics are saying that all of this concern on the part of the government and with regard to the development of the public service is nothing more than clever marketing, a kind of general public pandering. The general response to that is, who cares about motives? An example is this very mock discussion. If government is now taking responsibility and actively looking for lasting solutions, even for their own self-interest, is there anything wrong with that, once the results are meaningful and substantive for the development of the public service? Mr. Speaker, if I'm correct in the trends I've just described, and they seem to be quite visible, then there's good reason for optimism for the public service. The key fact that the force of public opinion and the attitudes of the public servants are making themselves felt. The question to this mock discussion is, how do we, the public servants, proceed from here? How do we, the public servants, make assurances that we don't blow this opportunity? The real question to be asked is, what is it that we wish to change in our nation? You only need to look at our national development since independence. Today, Bahamians are demanding first-class health care and a national health plan that allows Bahamians to receive the best available health care, whether from local or international doctors. Bahamians are demanding a postal system that is locally efficient between all the islands of the Bahamas and internationally comparable to any global posting system. Bahamians are demanding that the mailboat service that connects all the islands and runs on an approved schedule. Bahamians are demanding an educational system that will provide better opportunities than their parents received. Bahamians are demanding an all-inclusive tourism package where they are the owner, investor, and not employees on their own land. Bahamians are demanding working conditions that are comparable to the enthusiasm and excitement of getting the opportunity to work in government. Bahamians are demanding housing, construction codes that will withstand hurricanes, and ownership of land that is large enough to develop family homes. Bahamians are demanding an investment package or program to fast-track local investment in the same fashion that there's a fast-track method to approve foreign investments. And then I give as an example the recent developments in Eleuthero. The Bahamians are banning, and from my ministry, even better service in the foreign service. Further, Bahamians are banning agricultural products that are of good quality and low cost instead of the high cost imported products that are now available. Bahamians are demanding the government protect the marine resources of the Bahamas and develop the local marine industry instead of allowing foreign entities to overfish our waters. To bring these changes to the nation, we require a public service that is efficient and creative. If these demands are to be met, then the change in the public service can ignite a change in the nation. Mr. Speaker, the first is don't pander. There's already enough skepticism out there about the true motives of government. The social media notes when it comes to solving public service problems, people have less confidence in government in terms of trust. People write themselves, and government themselves first, and government second. Mr. Speaker, the rule is don't try to filibuster on the basic concepts like cost-benefit analysis or risk assessment. When it comes to matters involving basic health care and safety, the public is not impressed with arguments. We know enough about government and the public service that we can take action. We know how to reduce certain risks. There's little to be gained from going round and round and round on the topic. Mr. Speaker, the third concept, the public must begin and end with public servants, and not them, the government, versus us, the public servants. The Bahamian people are looking to the government for answers. Each public servant at each stage of development must have a clear idea and concept of his or her position and be ready to make meaningful contribution to the public service. Mr. Speaker, the public servant, through the public service, will set the leadership tone for the general public who are seeking direction and guidance. The public servant will determine whether our government does a good job for our people. The public servant will be leaders that the public wants to see in the government. The public servant, as the expert, will create the next great government program or come up with the next great innovative project. Mr. Speaker, in the wider public, there's urgent need for improvement to the public service. An example, in 2015, the government commissioned a study through the Commonwealth Secretariat for a review of the public service. This study showed that there is a need to concentrate on, among other things, governance, greater technology, succession planning for the public service, training at mid-management and senior levels, as well as greater inter-ministerial collaboration. Other areas of development within the Ministry of the Public Service include implementation of the Inter-American Development Bank Public Sector Reform Project. It is anticipated that to create more efficient responses by human resources units in the increasing demands of managing and developing the skills of officers in the public service. And may I just quickly add, Mr. Speaker, my ministry has been very innovative by creating a Ministry of Foreign Affairs Foreign Service Department. And this has now brought foreign officers to have an expert level. So there's a specialization to encourage young Bahamians to join the foreign service without being trapped in the regular routine process of the public service. To answer the resolution's questions, my answer is yes, I do agree. That change in the public service can ignite change in our nation. Thank you, Mr. Madam.
Thank you, Honourable Member for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. As many. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Cabinet Office.
Change will not come if we wait for some other person or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. These are the great and influential words of former American President Barack Obama. Good morning, Madam Speaker, and my fellow parliamentarians. I rise this morning as a proud representative of the Cabinet Office of the Bahamas. The Cabinet Office, as you know, comprises of the Cabinet Office proper, the staff of both the House of Assembly and the Senate, the Public Disclosure Commission, government publications, the Government Printing Department, and also the National Emergency Management Agency, also known as NEMA. These dedicated staff members in some capacity touch all sectors of the public service. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, it has been said that the only thing that is constant in this world is change. The basis of today's debate, change in the public service can ignite change in our nation, is an extremely timely one, as reform and continued enhancement within the public service is needed now more than ever. There has been no other time in recent history where public servants have been under such a high demand to evolve and improve themselves. The world around us is continuously evolving and changing, and we, as public servants, must adapt. In the past, the public service would have communicated primarily by traditional mail or post, or even fax. But now, public departments have transitioned into utilizing emails to convey communications more quickly. This is an example of how the public service must change from top to bottom to operate more efficiently. In order for us to compete globally, we must become more and more efficient in our roles and in our skills. Madam Deputy, we must first look inside ourselves and ask, what can I change within myself to ensure that I am performing above what is required within me in the public service? Secondly, we must look around us, immediately around us. That's in our offices, in our sections, in our departments, in our ministries, and ask, what can our offices change? What can our sections change? What can our departments and our ministries change to operate more efficiently and effectively? And finally, I know this is a sore point, but we must look at our leaders. We must look at our immediate supervisors. We must look at our directors. We must even look at our permanent secretaries, not just critically, but we must look constructively and ask, how can we in any way support and assist them in changing the public service for the better? Madam Deputy, we must also be realistic within ourselves and our limitations or shortcomings. We must ask ourselves, how can we transform our departments and ministries from places where the public dreads having to visit because they feel that their time would be wasted, and transition to a place where the public looks forward to visiting because they know that their wait would be brief and their experience would be pleasant. How can we change our levels of expenses, especially within our departments and ministries, and our levels of wastage to ensure that there are surplus funds left in the budget for raises and promotions for all public servants? How can we change finally what is our standard and our yardstick how can we change finally what are our standards? In the past, the public service was the yardstick by which the nation marked itself. And we must return to this place of excellence. Madam Deputy, today I will attempt to provide just a few suggestions of how we can change the public service to ignite change in our nation. Firstly, we must change our thinking and our mindset. The public service has operated for many years and in a lot of cases with the same processes. from day one. There's a lot of things in many ministries and departments that have not changed since those ministries and departments were established. If these processes are not serving the public service and the public at large, they must change and change now. The time has come for us to use change to face our challenges in the public service. In my department, specifically the Cabinet Office, changes has been and is continually being made, whether it be improvements in technology and digitization, even towards improvements in equipment and infrastructure. Many persons look at the Cabinet Office as an old, previously established department, operates in an old, methodical way, but only the persons within would know the technology that operates within the Cabinet Office. The Cabinet Office is one of the only government departments that operates a DocuWare system that digitizes just about all of our files and documents within our system. This initiative, however, must be institutionalized and expanded throughout the public service. There should never be a deficiency of technology in the public service, because without it, in today's economy, it is impossible to operate efficiently. My department is by no means perfect, but it is far beyond the limitations that it has faced in the past. The Cabinet Office, as I said, is one of the oldest, if not the oldest. But it encourages all staff members who are willing to attain and achieve training in technical skills and computer literacy. Changes must also be made to the guidelines governing the public service. This means our general orders must be changed to ensure that the government processes and procedures operate smoothly. Transfers, assessments, and even promotions take far too long. Additionally, reforms to general orders and other government guidelines must not only come from the top, but it should come from within the entire public service. This is the only way that we can ensure that there will be true transformative change. Secondly, we must change our expectations. We must change this expectation that if I wait long enough, I will be promoted. Or if I work in a certain department long enough, I will eventually get a raise. We must be continuously improving ourselves. It wasn't that long ago where the public service was the place to be. The public service used to employ most of the highly qualified persons within the Bahamas. We must change. The expectations of simply coming to work on time and leaving when we're supposed to should be awarded is the days of the past. Madam Deputy, I am sure that you can attest that the officers and staff at my department, the Cabinet Office, see arriving hours early and leaving hours late as the norm. These dedicated public servants regularly go beyond what is required of them to ensure that the government work is done, very rarely even being compensated. This attitude too must be duplicated throughout the public service. And finally, we must change our results. The measure of success today is not the same as it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and even in some instances 5 years ago. Hence, the public service must strive to continually improve its performance. A high school diploma is no longer enough. An associate's degree is no longer enough. In some instances, a bachelor's degree or a master's degree is not even enough. Why aren't there more public servants with PhDs? Education enables us to work smarter and not harder.
Honorable members.
Training needs to be further encouraged within the public service. Our results, we need to access our results, and we need to decipher whether or not we are doing better today than we did yesterday, and are we performing more efficiently than we did in years past. Madam Deputy, in closing, I would like to thank my department, the Cabinet Office, and my superiors, especially the Secretary to the Cabinet, for believing in me and providing me with the opportunity to represent our esteemed department in this prestigious setting. And last but certainly not least, Madam Speaker, I would like to thank you for your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for the Cabinet Office. As many? The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for the Ministry of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the Ministry of Health for the opportunity to represent us in this mock debate today. The Bahamas National Drug Prevalence Survey 2017 revealed that 7.3% of males aged 12 to 24 years currently smoke marijuana, while 0.7% to 1.1% of females does so. The cannabis abuse screening test, which measures marijuana addiction risk, was also utilized in this survey. This revealed that males 12 to 24 years of age had a 56.9% chance of becoming addicted to cannabis, while females had a 25.6% chance of having the same addiction. When the population surveyed was asked how easy it would be to access marijuana, almost 48.5% of them said easy. Additionally, this study revealed that the mean age for males first time smoking marijuana was age 16 and a half years of age, and females were 19 years old. Moreover, a qualitative study was conducted in 4 islands of the Bahamas by the Ministry of National Security and the National Drug Secretariat for a period of 3 months in the year 2017. Those islands were inclusive of New Providence, Grand Bahama, Exuma, and Abaco. This study included 60 participants between the ages of 18 to 25 years old. The study showed that 52% of the participants started smoking marijuana between the ages of 10 to 14 years old, while 38% of participants began smoking between the ages of 15 to 19 years old. Madam Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen, now that I have your attention, I will talk to you about how the use of marijuana amongst adolescents is affecting our future generation and how a change in public service can impact their lives, thus promoting a change in our nation from a mental health perspective. The leading group of causes in inpatient morbidity at Sandilands Rehabilitation Center discharges from 2010 to 2016 revealed that the mental and behavioral disorder due to the use of marijuana was a total of 1,053 patients, with the highest amount in 2016 being 204 patients. An interview was conducted with the social worker in 2018 at Simpson Penn Center for Boys, which revealed that 95 to 100% of adolescents admitted to the center smoke marijuana. Consequently, interviews conducted by nurses at the Bahamas Department of Corrections revealed that 95 to 100% of adolescents who came to that institution admitted to smoking weed on a daily basis. Moreover, the second major chronic illness amongst inmates in 2017 at the Bahamas Department of Corrections was psychiatric conditions, as reported in the medical end-of-year report. These case studies were conducted in 2017 at Sandilands Rehabilitation Center. A 15-year-old patient presented to Child and Adolescent Unit at SRC, sent by court on charges of housebreaking and stealing. This teenager smoked 2 joints per day since the age of 15 and was sent to Simpson Penn Center and the Lead Institute previously by his mother to assist with behavioral issues. This adolescent male attacked his brother with a knife and claimed while sitting on the porch smoking weed at his home, his boy came to him and asked him to assist him in the previously mentioned crime against his neighbor. Every semester, he made a GPA of 1 point. Cannabis misuse disorder and disruptive behavior was his diagnosis. Consequently, an 18-year-old male was admitted to renovated Eloise Penn ward in 2017. The mother of this adolescent reported that her son would stare into space, display aggressive behavior towards relatives, claiming that he was being followed by police, acting as spies out to kill him. Moreover, his GPA was 0.59, and he read at a grade 4 level. Smoking dope on an average of 4 to 6 joints per day was the norm for him since the age of 16. Cannabis misuse disorder and drug-induced psychosis was his diagnosis. A 31-year-old patient was admitted to New Eloise Penn ward at Sandilands Rehabilitation Center in 2017, whose sister had to tell his story. Being unable to recall his name, hearing voices when no one was around, seeing people when no one was there, and threatening to kill relatives were a few things she recalled transpired in her brother's life. Not to mention the day he stripped, ball naked, and ran down the street and attacked a relative, feeling that the person was out to harm him. He was smoking dope since the age of 16, 3 to 4 joints per day. His diagnosis was cannabis misuse disorder and drug-induced psychosis. You think somebody laced them? Did you know that marijuana contains a mind-altering chemical called delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, called THC, thus having short and long-term effects on the human brain, especially when used by adolescents, as the human brain undergoes dramatic growth from the age of 5 to 20 years of age, according to the American Pediatrics and Varicose Foundations of Psychiatric Mental Health Nursing, a clinical approach. Moreover, some side effects of ganja include bizarre and unusual behavior, decreased school performance, psychotic symptoms, and reduction in thinking and memory, as revealed in the above-mentioned source. Ladies and gentlemen, can't you see how marijuana is impacting the lives of our youth? Therefore, we must do something to ignite change for our future generation. Hence, I suggest the revising of the Mental Health Act of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, which was last revised in the year 2000. I would like this act, particularly in the section pertaining to offenses against patients, to be revised, as it currently speaks to fines and incarceration for physical and sexual abuse and improper detention towards patients. What about those who sell and give marijuana to our adolescents, thus impacting their mental health negatively? What is the penalty for them? Let us make a choice to create a change in our nation, realizing that our youth is our future generation. There is a saying at Sandilands Rehabilitation Center that I want all of us to remember, which states, there is no health without mental health. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member, for the Ministry of Housing. I'd like at this moment to just make a special recognition in our gallery, the Permanent Secretary in the Public Service, Mrs. Donnella Bodie. Thank you, ma'am, for gracing us with your presence today. As many, the Chair recognizes the Department of Labor. Sorry, forgive me. The Chair recognizes the member for the Department of Lands and Survey.
Madam Speaker, colleagues, Bahamas, good morning.
Good morning.
Barack Obama once said, we did not come to fear the future, but we came to shape it. We at the Department of Lands and Surveys fully understand the gravity of this statement, as we find ourselves rebuilding and retooling. We also fully understand that change here at our department will result in change in our country. I intend to prove this is shown in our resolve to training, the effective and efficient manner in which we conduct our tasks and duties, even in the way we meet our local and international demands placed on us by our aware and knowledgeable government officials. To us, being public servants truly means being servants of the people, and we intend to live by that. As agents that manage, monitor, and protect the land of our country, we know where the true wealth of our nation lies. So as we map every square inch of the Bahamas, we would like to assist in mapping the positive change to a better Bahamas. Change is a culture, and we must be the change we seek. Mr. Speaker, lands and surveys offer many options to young people, most of which are unknown to the general public. A mere 7 years ago, I went to work the land surveys. I had no idea what happened there. You laughing, but it's true. Positions as land surveyors, cartographers, GIS analysts, land management, and chainmen are jobs that are all in high demand at the department, and that's only to name a few. As we seek a better future, I know somewhere someone has a plan to help train this future. Currently, no institution in the Bahamas offer courses relevant to the department. This introduces further issues. It is suggested that mapping-related courses be introduced to high school students in order to foster a love at a tender age for the craft. It is envisioned that a technical cadet course be developed to help to show that land surveying is a viable professional career option, as the profession needs an infusion of youth. Even the upgrading courses currently offered by the Ministry of the Public Service should focus more on math and science courses. We all can be doctors, lawyers, politicians. We all can't be teachers. We got enough police. Land surveying is the smallest, if not one of the smallest profession in this country. The average age of a land surveyor is probably around about 65 years old. Right? I am 33. 33 years old. And I think I'm the youngest land surveyor in the country. No, that's a good thing. You come to school at 17. The average diploma course is a 2-year course. The average degree course, bachelor degree course, is a 4 to 5 year course. I am 33. Please, someone at the University of the Bahamas, hear me. Hear me. We need a land survey curriculum at UB. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I know it's short, you won't need a bell. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, we have heard about the ease of doing business bill. We have heard about the Crown Land Audit. We have heard about the land registration bill. We pray for the implementation and hope for the monitoring, updating, and policing of this data. We suggest the decentralization of the Land and Survey Office to accommodate the family islands. We are in desperate need to see that it's another job, you know. It's another job. We always crying, but we ain't got jobs around here for people. Watch us, it's another job. We are in desperate need of land rangers. You see all this land we get here? People squatting all over the place, corruptly using government land. We need land rangers to monitor what happens on our land. So I trust that someone heard me, right? Because I finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Honorable Member, for your quite comical presentation. And of course, I'm sure we take those comments very seriously. Thank you, Honorable Member. At this time, I'm sure that my deputy would have recognized, but we are so happy to have with us in the gallery this afternoon, the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of the Public Service, responsible for my promotion So I got to recognize her. As many. The chair recognizes the honorable member for the Ministry of Labor.
Mr. Speaker and honorable members, I rise to support the resolution on the occasion of the Public Service Parliament to debate a change in the public service can ignite change in our nation. I stand on behalf of our Minister, the Senator, the Honorable Dion Folks, Permanent Secretary Cecilia Strawn, and the good people of the Ministry of Labor, whom I'm proud to represent in this House. Today, I am pleased to advise that change in the public service have impacted the lives of our citizens. In my contribution, I'm going to outline some of those progressive changes of some of the agencies under the purview of my ministry. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in September 1992, after completing my education in the United States, I was made an offer to commence employment with the Bahamas government and was stationed at the Ministry of Education, assigned to the office of the Permanent Secretary. As a young college grad, I must admit, I did not think that 26 years later, I would be given service to the public service. In my mind, I could not imagine that the public service was ready and capable of accommodating individuals who were prepared by some of the best professors and universities in America, Canada, the Bahamas, London, and are now returning to a country that appeared that it could not and would not embrace their training. In our management courses, we were taught that a worker's awareness would result in the emphasis on the quality of their life work. The rights of the individuals at work would demand more attention from society and legislation. Organizations would realize that the important investment would be their employees, while organizations would consider that it was important to get the most out of their employers. Employees believed that it was just as important that they get the most as they could from their employment. We were taught that when employees were hired, employees would make a serious investment in terms of their wages, training, vacation, promotion, insurance, workers' compensation, and retirement benefits. Employees would make a commitment to the organization in terms of their time, talent, effort, and future promise. I can assure you that after working 3 months before receiving my first salary and learning that my starting salary would be less than I paid for 1 year of university, I was prepared to resign and return to a place where I felt would embrace my talent, experience, and training. To this day, I am grateful to public officers like the late Dr. Eric Bourne, Lloyd Simonet, Rosemary Thompson, officers like Rose Green Thompson, Dornella Bodie, Archie Nen, Carol Hanna, Luther Smith, and Wendell Major, who convinced me that I should stay in the public service, and because we were on the verge of a new day, and I could be a part of that change. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I am grateful that they convinced me to continue to make my contribution, and therefore I am able to report on behalf of the good people of the Ministry of Labor. The true character of a society is reflected not so much by the affluent, but accurately in the treatment of the downtrodden, the senior citizens, and the more vulnerable members of our society. This is essentially what my ministry is mandated to do through the Consumer Protection Agency. The Consumer Protection Agency, or CPC, is the agency of the government tasked primarily with consumer protection. It was established in the Consumer Protection Act of 2006. Some of the functions are to formulate and implement standards in relation to consumer issues, to carry out at the request of a consumer who may have been adversely affected, such as investigations in relation to the sales of goods and provision of services, and to determine whether those goods were sold or the service provided were in contravention of the Act, and then make a report and recommendation to the minister and to assist those individuals.
and advise and support our consumers, to collect, compile, and analyze and publish information in relation to any trade or business, and to provide the consumer with education that they need. Yes, my ministry is also pleased to advise the Bahamas Bureau of Standards and Quality is another statutory body established by the Act of 2006 to promote and encourage standardization and the highest quality of commodities, processes, and practices across the economic spectrum, which offers to the Bahamian public the international marketplace. BBSQ is also the national accreditation focal point and the national inquiry point for the affiliation with major regional and international bodies. The main focus of BBSQ are to prepare, promote, and generally adopt standards on national, regional, and international basis, affiliate implementation of standards in the quality of the Bahamas, in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, monitor for compliance, and certify products, commodities, processes, service, and quality. These are two of the standard-setting bodies of the Ministry of Labor. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, another change in the public service which have impacted our nation was the creation of the National Training Agency, which exists to create a workforce that is productive, service-oriented, competitive, responsive to the dynamic needs of the Bahamian community. This agency was established by an Act of Parliament in 2013 to build a competency-based training and job placement system that is flexible and responsive to the labor needs of our country. The training system leveraged a network of training providers and organizations to enhance skills, development, and job readiness among its participants. One, the National Training Agency delivers competency-based training, engage activities in increased productivity and employability. We prepare and implement plans for workforce vocational training in accordance with national policies, economic needs, and industry demands. The National Training Agency since 2013 have delivered soft skills training and skills training to more than 4,496 trainees between the age of 16 and 30. The agency has facilitated training in New Providence, Grand Bahama, Exuma, and Eleuthera, and we're moving to some more islands. My good member, we are already in Eleuthera. Harbour Island is in Eleuthera. 98% of the total participants successfully completed both soft skills and technical training. Mr. Speaker.
Go right ahead, sir.
Are measured by the trainees' attendance, punctualities, participation, and adherence to program policy. 84% of total participants successfully completed international cities and guilds certification. 54% of the participants have successfully gained employment in New Providence. The agency has strong relationship with key industry leaders, including Atlantis, Comfort Suite, Malia, Bahama, and Diamonds International, whom our trainees are employed with. Mr. Speaker, and fellow members, I am pleased to commend the hard-working staff of the Consumer Protection Commission, Consumer Affairs, the Bureau of Standards and Quality, and the National Training Agency, which falls under my ministry, who carry out an important function and assist thousands of citizens annually, but their work is often overlooked or not appreciated. But the implementation of these respective bodies have impacted positive change in this country. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the public service is under constant pressure for change. As citizens' demand on country's political leadership continues to grow, the public service is expecting greater openness, better quality of service delivery, efficient operation, effective quality customer service, and modernization of the services rendered. Our leaders truly faced with greater challenges as the demands for increased expectation and quality service from the customer or the public is expected. The public service is vital to the operations of any country. The performance and effectiveness of its operations are critical, important to the lives of every citizen. In the Bahamas, we are fortunate to have a public service that is comprised of dedicated men and women who are making a major contribution to the development of its citizens.
I'll give you one more minute, Honorable Member.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, public officers are often unfairly stereotyped as lazy, incompetent, and ineffective. This has truly been an unfair assessment because I can assure you, throughout my travels throughout the public service, I've met individuals who are committed to the lives and the development of this country through their loyal, dedicated, and invaluable contribution. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I believe if we don't address this issue, we will be faced with a brain drain, and where some of our best and brightest will continue to be attracted by organizations and agencies outside of our country. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the urgency of action is now. I therefore end by agreeing to this resolution that a change in the public service will ignite change in our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. May I remind members in this House of your need to stick to your time limit. As many. The chair recognizes the honorable member for the Department of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to make my contribution to this timely resolution. I thank the constituents of the Ministry of Department of Agriculture and Marine Resources for affording me this opportunity and the confidence they repose in me to represent them in this honorable place. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the resolution tabled today. I salute members of the public service in the Bahamas for their dedication, for their honesty, for their sacrifice, for their love of country, and commitment to provide essential services to the government, the essential services of the government to the people and all those who visit our Bahama land. Mr. Speaker, too often public service and public servants in the Bahamas are characterized as being inefficient, offer poor service, underpaid, overstaffed, lack motivation. But I believe that such undesirable characters are in the minority. I submit that the majority of public servants are smart, compassionate, loyal, committed, innovative, resilient, creative, selfless, patriotic, and strive for excellence. Mr. Speaker, while public servants are deserving of these adjectives to describe professional and support staff, I submit that change is necessary in the public service for public officers to remain responsive to the ever-present local and international demands for the timely delivery of government services. Mr. Speaker, change is constant. Change that creates positive results is necessary. Change is inevitable and is desirable for the development of an organization. In the absence of change, there's likely to be stagnation, idleness, and reduced productivity. In today's dynamic and ever-changing world, the public sector must update or change to keep abreast with intrinsic and extrinsic changes, just like any other organization that wants to remain current and wants to remain relevant. Ministries and departments are expected to use innovations and latest technologies to manage in management and technical operation of the public sector if they are to be responsive to the needs of the government and the public. Regular staff training and retooling to use best practices are necessary for the public service to provide positive change. Mr. Speaker, the question is not if the public service will change. I suggest that the question is how responsive will the necessary change be? Also, what changes in the public service will ignite change in our nation? Mr. Speaker, as I consider this question, I wish to focus on how change in the Department of Agriculture can ignite change in our nation. Mr. Speaker, one change I recommend for the public service is a shift from a political agenda to a national development strategy for the public service. If the national strategy is to increase food security in selected food items by increasing local production, this should be the focus of the Department of Agriculture, regardless of the government that is in power of today. This change will minimize shift in policies that often accompany change in government. Each ministry should have a national development plan developed and monitored by a bipartisan committee of relevant experts. And this should include the requisite funding to ensure that that strategy can be implemented. Mr. Speaker, the second change I recommend for the public service is redress of inequity in the remuneration for public servants. Public service should not equate to lower pay. I wish to say that again. Public service should not equate to lower pay. We expect public servants to be qualified, to have requisite experience, to provide professional service, to be innovative, be creative, but we pay them far less, and our working conditions are lower than comparative work in the private sector. Mr. Speaker, also there is inequity among staff in the public service, where persons assigned to corporations and authorities are paid at a higher scale and often have less qualification and experience than public officers. If we offer comparative remuneration, the public service will attract and retain suitably qualified persons. Also, more young persons would see the public service as a career choice, and this will help to accelerate the innovation and change that is needed in the public service. Mr. Speaker, I feel a change in the importance of agriculture in the national economy can ignite a change in our nation. Often the contribution of agriculture to our national economy is measured on the estimates of its contribution to the gross domestic product and employment. We need to take a second look at the role of public servants in the Ministry and Department of Agriculture. While we are not fighting the war on crime, while we are not fighting illegal immigration, while we are not fighting the poachers on our seas, public servants in agriculture are on the front line of a fight and a cause that is just as noble and as important as any other. We are on the front line to protect the safety of our food supply. Imagine what would happen if persons do not have access to safe food. What would happen in our judiciary? What would happen to our law enforcement? What would happen to other areas of our economy? What would happen to our treasured tourism industry? We are charged in the Ministry of Agriculture with the mandate to monitor the safety of imports. We are charged to reduce dependency on imports by encouraging domestic food production, to encourage the linkage with agriculture and agribusiness with other sectors of the economy. Mr. Speaker, the importance of supporting our farmers and agribusiness is even more important than just having fresh and safe and nutritious food to eat. Agriculture have and continue to be important to the development of our family islands, to our culture, to our cuisine, to our way of life. At the national level, when we support Bahamian farmers, we support the economy of our family islands. We support entrepreneurship. We are supporting ownership in our economy. We are supporting independent business persons. Mr. Speaker, the importance of our support and protection of local farmers has never been more critical than now. They need our help to survive and thrive in the great threat of an open market that will come by the end of 2019, when it is expected that the Bahamas will join the WTO. Mr. Speaker, our farmers are agribusiness persons. They are an agribusiness person. They are ready. They are willing and able to increase local production. They need our support to expand and to be more productive and efficient. Mr. Speaker, I wish to highlight some positive changes in the Ministry of Agriculture that will help ignite the change in our nation through agriculture. The Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Institute, also referred to as BAMSI, is situated in North Andros, and it has many facets to that operation. But one of the things this operation has done is provide schooling and academic training for persons interested in livestock and crop production. For too long, we have focused on agriculture for persons who could not do anything else. But agriculture is a science. Agriculture still requires some of the best minds to be able to assist this country in becoming self-sufficient and to help to develop our economy. At the BAMSI school, the graduates come from all over the family islands. And what is good about this program, once the persons would have received training, they now go back into their family island communities where they are able to transfer the technology, they're able to revitalize and transform agriculture in these communities. As I hasten on, Mr. Speaker, another initiative that was implemented in the Ministry of Agriculture is the Bahamas Agriculture, Health and Food Safety Authority. This is a new authority in the ministry and is responsible for all sanitary and phytosanitary matters in the Bahamas, and is making great strides in ensuring that our food is safe and wholesome and healthy for us to consume. The third entity I wish to highlight, Mr. Speaker, is the Gladstone Road Agriculture Center. This year, this center will celebrate 50 years of operation, 50 years of being a demonstration farm, 50 years of doing research that is transferred to our local farmers. And this is important to provide a hands-on approach so that farmers can see what are the best practices, what are the state-of-the-art equipment, what are the improved breeds of animals that they can use to improve their production and efficiency and their income in producing safe food for our Bahamas. But Mr. Speaker, before I sit, we are at a crossroad in the Ministry of Agriculture. By the end of 2019, 80% of the persons at the assistant director and above will have retired. 80% by the end of 2019. The last agriculture, animal scientist, and animal and crop person that was hired in the Department of Agriculture has been more than 20 years. We have a tremendous gap. We have an awesome responsibility to assist with food production, to assist with helping farmers to be able to support themselves and to continue their work of providing wholesome food for our country. And we need help. We need help to ensure that we get additional persons. We need help to ensure that the persons who are there can get their assessment and promotion on a timely basis. We need help to get equipment and transportation to allow us to go out and be the change agent that we know that we can be, but we need your help. As I close, Mr. Speaker, Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Far and away, the best prize that life has to offer is the chance to work hard at work worth doing." I submit that public service is hard work, but it is work worth doing. As each public servant strives for the change that will ignite change in our nation for the good of all, we will find that we will be the benefit all for it. I thank you.
As many, the chair recognizes the honorable member for the Bahamas Department of Customs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we gather here to debate this resolution, I'm humbled to be able to add my voice to this conversation. Mr. Speaker, I'm reminded of a stump speech that was given by former United States President Barack Obama as he was in the midst of his transformative run for presidency of that country. He speaks about how one of his campaign slogans was coined, despite all the negatives that he was experiencing on that particular day. He tells of a campaign stop in South Carolina in which he started out having a bad day, and he speaks of the low turnout that was at this particular event. He then focused on one woman who was at the event and the fact that her chant of "fired up, ready to go" changed the entire atmosphere of this particular campaign stop. He concluded by telling the audience that he was speaking to that one voice can change a room. And if one voice can change a room, then it can change a city. And if it can change a city, it can change a state. And if it can change a state, it can change a nation. And if it can change a nation, it can change the world. Your voice can change the world. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, this one story can act as a metaphor for the public service of the Bahamas, because as the lyrics to the popular song goes, it only takes a spark to get the fire going. This organization may be seen as a microcosm of the population of the Bahamas. These public employees have the ability to affect meaningful change in this country. This would be a great asset given the myriad of issues that are facing this great nation and the need to cultivate an environment where there is a renewed sense of confidence in the country as persons in the wider community began to re-embrace the Bahamian dream and look past the one that has taken hold, which is the ownership of a Honda and a job at Atlantis or Bahamas. This serves to reason, Mr. Speaker, that any small change can intuitively be expected to be mirrored closely by members of the private sector and create a meaningful wave of change, such as one can achieve by throwing a stone into a lake and watching the waves that it creates. Mr. Speaker, given this reality, then the service needs to shed itself of the myth that it is a dumping ground where those who are considered loyalists are placed as a reward for their loyalty. But it is indeed an organization that is carefully crafted in a way that reflects the broader diversity of the Bahamian country. And it is one where mechanisms are in place to ensure that those who are deserving are given the opportunities needed to shine and enable the organization to attract and retain the best and brightest that our country has to offer, rather than watch them wander off for greener pastures elsewhere in other countries at the expense of this great nation. This can be done through the streamlining of career paths that offer greater room for regular advancement that is based on a working knowledge of one's job and their qualifications, which will seek to dispel the myth that it is not about what you know, but rather who you know. There can also be implemented peer mentorship programs to ensure that information is passed on from one generation to the next, to reduce the instances of retirements being delayed or persons having to be called out of retirement, and aid in deficit reduction, which is a cornerstone of the overall fiscal consolidation plan of the country. There must be more to it, Mr. Speaker, than the song that was penned by popular Bahamian artists KB and Sting, where there seems to be a culture of inherent slackness that is allowed to permeate, and public servants can indeed ignite change in this country, but one must be careful of the type of change that you want to create, Mr. Speaker. This Bahama land is characterized as a small open economy, Mr. Speaker, where the government is regarded as the single largest employer. And this can allow one to make the argument then that without any significant legislative change, that the government of the Bahamas has the ability to affect change in this country through policy alone. And this comes as a result of these type of economies, that the actions of governments are seen as leading indicators of the overall health of the economy in general. This is due to the fact that if a government decides it is going to undertake any action, then this action within the public service can be seen as an indication of its intention for the wider economy of the country, and can infect the entire organism, but rather one that espouses the idea that we are all taught growing up that if you work hard and are committed, then you'll be able to achieve meaningful success in this life. This should be indicative of return to the cultural roots of this proud people who pride themselves on their work ethic, not only in the public service, but in the country as a whole, Mr. Speaker. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, one needs to commend the patriots who have decided that they are willing to serve their country, accepting that it is for love of country, as the state undoubtedly will not be able to match the office in the private sector. This, however, does not by any way mean that these persons should be excluded from experiencing the Bahamian dream because they're not given what is considered a fair living wage given the sacrifices made for the betterment and love of country. Because, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Member.
Mr. Speaker, I am cognizant of all of the contribution made by the members here, but I zeroed in particularly on the Minister for Agriculture's his speech regarding the necessity for food. So it is with this thought in mind that I wish to move that the House be suspended until the 3 p.m. hour.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I do apologize, Honorable Member, for the Bahamas Department of Customs, but with your colleagues' permission, we will continue your speech immediately following the break. It has been moved. Is there a seconder? So it's been moved and seconded that the House will take a break from its business until the 3 p.m. hour. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The House stands on break from business until the 3 p.m. hour.
All right.